have the Budget Committee for the Jenks Aquarium Authority. Today is Friday, June 7th of 2024. The time is 11:35 a.m. My name is Corey Box. I'll be chairing today's meeting. And Mr. Macy, can you please get our roll call underway, sir?
Brown.
Here.
Montgomery. Here. Chair Box.
Here. Item number 1 under this business is the review of the revenues and expenditures and transfers and any accounts related issues pertaining to the fiscal year 2024 to 2026 biannual budget. Whoever wants to get us underway for item 1, please do.
I'll at least introduce it. So the aquarium's been doing really well financially the last 3 years, I would say, and I think we're going to have another all-time high in revenue. From 2017 to 2024, I think we went from $4.5 million in revenue to over $8.5, and I think we'll be approaching $9 million this year. With that in mind, last year we did a 3% pay increase for all employees and a 3% stipend. This year we are hoping to do a 6% base pay for everyone. Also last year, anyone earning, I believe, less than $50,000 received a $2 to $3 per hour increase. So no one is making less than $15 per hour. And then what we did is basically took everything that Kenny and his team asked for, and I think largely approved, and put into this budget. So any changes that you see were requested by the aquarium. Kenny, I don't know if you have anything specific to add, but other than that, we'd be happy to take any questions.
Our biggest change has been personnel, sorry, not used to sitting here. Our biggest change has been basically with personnel and getting the quantities and the pay closer to our target.
And the memo and packet outline the specific changes. I think that based on Kenny's and his team's advice, we rearranged some of the part-time and full-time positions, but I think the net increase is just one full-time position. So, and the memo and all the backup outlines anything other than the pay increases and the employees. So again, we'd be happy to take any questions or guidance that the committee may have.
Okay.
Can I jump in?
Go ahead.
Okay. Which way are we going? I've got about 5 items, and probably rather than go through page by page, is just to identify those things if somebody wants to make some notes. On page 5, I had a question about maybe a little explanation on the main deck replacement, what that looks like, since that's a significant item. Kind of a general question, thinking about the areas where the city helps provide services. For example, we're looking at this budget packet, and I'm assuming that our finance team was involved with that. Do we have an administrative services agreement with the aquarium where we're recapturing any of those costs for overhead with the city? Also, on page 7, just a question. I sat there with my calculator a few times. On the far right column on page 7, budget change shows 1.4 million in change between the I guess the last budget item to the last budget to the current, or what's proposed. And when I did the math going down, looking at the budget change on the line items, I'm only seeing it's kind of almost 100,000 the opposite direction. So I'm wondering if there's a cell formula problem there, or maybe I just am misreading it.
So you're suggesting the 1.4, that cell is not equal
does not
equal the sum of all the
Yeah,
cells?
if I sum the
Yeah.
column, it doesn't look right. So then also just kind of a general question, and I know we hit this with comes up on our other budgets where we're showing the actual to date, which is, we're always at least, I'm guessing 1 quarter short. Just wondering, moving forward, when we come up to our budgets, if we can just do, I realize it's not accurate, but if we can annualize, just do an annualizing, that'll give us a better feel for where we're at year to date when we're looking at budgets. Then just kind of a general, also just a general thought too, because we're annualizing, again, if we could get some operating ratios, ROI, income to expense, ROA, I think that would be beneficial moving forward. And then also just a general thought too, when I look at this operation compared to what we do with JPWA and the city itself, I see this as more of a commercial entity, so would look for more standardized financial statements. And typically, I like to see when we do a budget, to see if all things are being equal, what would the impact be on a projected balance sheet from one year to the next.
And we
And
do
that
have.
was it.
Okay.
I can,
The main deck, I think we
Yeah,
can
I can-
start with Kenny.
yeah, I can get rid of the deck here. So basically, the deck, we had it planked a little while back. And at the time, the contractor did not bring up any structural issues. Now, very recently, we've noticed a slope in the deck. And so we brought out another contractor to look at it. And in his opinion, there's structural issues. And in his opinion, this is what it would cost to rectify that. But there's a lot open-ended that I don't know yet. The money that's put in here is a just in case. We put in a lot of money every year for air conditioners, and we rarely use it. So, but I would like to use some of this money to get somebody out there to start removing boards and doing a real true assessment of the structure, so we know for a fact, how long we have, can we spot fix it? But that ain't gonna be free, you know what I mean? Because they're gonna need to literally go section by section and start removing boards. There's really not that much room under there to truly get a good assessment. So I'm very skeptical that we're gonna need to replace all that. But I'm not gonna know until I know.
I guess the reason I look at that too, that's on the east side of the building.
Yeah.
Riverside. And I know we've had some discussions about the impact of the trail coming through.
Right.
And what changes we'll need to make on the back side of that. So I'm just kind of wondering the extent that we want to hold off on those till we got a better feel, but.
It's really money there for an emergency. In other words, if we have a complete collapse or something, you know what I mean, to come back and ask for $100,000+. But I'm assuming we're gonna probably spend a few thousand to get to know exactly what we're dealing with. And hopefully it's just some spots. The good thing is that all the piles under there, they're concrete. It's all the cross beams and everything like that. And then they were saying, well, we can't really reuse these boards. If we do all that, it's gonna be different, blah, blah, blah. I don't know for that. I don't know if that's a fact or if that's what they're telling us. So really this money is more of a kind of a holding, it's just in case, just like our air conditioners. They're aging, and we pick the biggest air conditioner we have to replace, and we've been doing that year after year after year, and we still haven't replaced it.
That's good.
I would say, yeah, the formula, it's way off. There's nowhere, you can just look at it with your head and there's nowhere, it's not even close to being right. It should be a negative number. I don't even know how that's possible. So we might want to check that formula. And of course, at that point, you see something that with such a huge variance, I don't know, you got to have a confidence level that all these formulas are right. But you add those numbers up and looks like a negative number to me. Back to your point, Mr. Brown, budget change last column, that 1.4 million.
Right.
Should be a negative number. We want to figure out an explanation before we go. Somebody want
Well-
to side hustle that?
We'll figure it out.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm looking
I don't know that we'll figure it out at this moment, but
okay.
the admin cost, HR, legal, finance, provide support to the aquarium, but since really, I would say the first 18 years of existence, there was a supplemental payment on behalf of the JAA from the JPWA or the city. And so it's only been the last 3 or 4 years. We haven't needed that, and the JAA has had a surplus, so no, there is not an agreement for the JAA to reimburse the city for those, what I call support functions, but I think that's something that we can consider moving forward.
Does the aquarium file a 990?
Well, the OAF files a 990, but
Okay.
the JAA is the operating entity, which is a public trust, with the sole beneficiary being the city of Jenks.
I was just thinking if even if we didn't do some type of a hard dollar or soft dollar transfer, it could be showed as a contribution in kind on the 990.
I verified that calculation, so my total was wrong. It is a negative 118,000. All the others are correct.
So we go above, like, related to the annualizing, we have the actual through the end of the third quarter. The Oklahoma Municipal Budget Act is a requirement placed on municipalities, but not their public trusts. And that states we have to go through the end of December in this budget presentation. We have taken the step to go through the end of March, and I think that we can look at projecting going through the end of the year. I'm trying to see what else. That's 4 of the 5.
Operating ratios, just moving forward.
Well, when you speak to the fund balance, that is included in the final budget, and we can, moving forward, include that in the budget committee packet as well.
Okay.
I'm done.
Okay, thanks for some of those comments, John. I've also been for years wanting to see it basically as an income statement, cash flow, and balance sheet. And I'm glad to see someone else starting to hit their head against the wall on that one. But yeah, I think it would be a good idea to show the forecast. I would call it a forecast. Some of that's real simple. I mean, if it's personnel costs, you can quickly annualize that. Where we get into some weirdness that, from discussions we've had in past budgets, is there are some other things that are a lot bumpier in the way they hit us. And sometimes annualizing it isn't a great way to look at it, but it does give you a guideline.
Right.
So, okay, where was I on some of these? We continue to still show in the budget in the forecast, that line for, this is on page 7, this $500,000 transfer that we never use. It just seems like to me we should leave it out.
Where are you at, Keith?
I'm on page 7 and the lower
Oh, I see.
fourth of the page,
Fund
where we
document.
always show that, we show it as a budget item, and there were years that was a needed item, but it hasn't been needed for something like the last 4 or 5 years. So, I think we maybe just leave that out. On going up a little bit to the account for the Fish Friends donation, the last several years, it's been in the 80,000-90,000 range, and we're showing it on a forecast on a 50,000 range. That, given that, when we do splash and other events, we tend to just turn that into the Fish Friends. That just seems a little low in your numbers. But that's a choice, how you forecast it. And I had another question on the carousel. Kenny answered it, and it was that if I annualized our year-to-date, we'd be like 195, and we're showing 240 in the forecast, but we do have the Outlet Mall coming on, so, that kind of makes some sense. That's not a big deal. One item that I did notice that gave me some concern, and if you go to page 25, that's kind of our facilities budget, and if you go down to utilities, I think we're under forecasting the utility costs. I mean, as we all know, paying our own bills, those numbers have gone up. If you look back to 22-23, it was 824,000. If I just do a simple annualization of year-to-date, we'd be just under 900,000, but yet we're forecasting 800,000 going forward, and that just seems light, given the situation. And when would when would our new quarantine building go live, do you think? Would it go live in the second year of this budget?
No,
Okay, darn.
not likely.
Hope springs eternal.
But we'll see with these extra, employees, how quick we can get them trained and
Yeah,
how much effect how much time they're gonna help us with.
okay. But
But
that
the
would be-
utilities that you mentioned, I definitely think that's an oversight. We need to bump that.
Yeah, and I don't know what the right number would be, but it just seems like that's been escalating well in excess of inflation the last few years.
Yeah, but Keith, the actual was 666, that's for
No,
the
the
entire.
actual for 9 months of the year was 666. If I annualize that by adding another
It's
quarter,
not a full year.
it's 888,000.
Oh, the 666
Yeah.
does
Yeah.
not get us to June 30th?
No, those numbers are
obviously
No,
not.
that gets you to May, I'm sorry, end of March.
Yeah, because we're not at the end of our,
Okay, all right, you're right, according to the title,
Yeah.
okay.
Right, but just to let you know, the actuals for utilities through payments we made through June 4th, 779,000.
Okay.
So,
So-
Well,
right, really close.
I'm pretty confident it isn't going to be less than it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Certainly, because when we hit June and July, our air conditioning bill is going to go electric bill is going to go way up because of what it takes to cool that place. So I don't know what the right number is, but that just feels like a number that we will way exceed. Trying to think, was there anything?
Electricity, is that the biggest portion of the bill?
yeah,
Yeah.
we use a lot of
I
electricity.
think I've asked this before too. Are we doing anything to implement any solar?
We've looked into it, and now, but that was years ago. I'm sure the technology's changed, but it was so, the amount of solar that we would need was just, it wouldn't fit on the roof. We'd have to have a solar garden, which we don't really have the real estate for, but.
Kenny does have a plan to put up 152 windmills around the.
Yeah, so all the bald eagles can get decapitated.
Out in the river.
We actually looked at windmills too until the bald eagle thing came into, I mean, we looked at a bunch of things, but once again, this was several years ago. Technology has changed.
Now, there's actually a different one that's not a big blade, it's like a cylinder. That's a new design that came out recently.
So so like I said,
But
technology.
the other thing, John, is we know in the next few years, at some point, we're going to need to do a new roof. And so you would have other issues if we tried to, that would be the ideal place to do it, but it has its own issues right now.
I know that Tesla is now utilizing a new panel it's actually a shingle.
Photovoltaic shingle.
Yeah.
So
They're
It
only
may not have
$1,000
the
a square
space that you
foot.
need, but anything that would mitigate or bring it down.
Yeah, and we're a flat roof design for the vast majority of it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And the shingle costs about as much as a small Korean car, so probably
Yeah.
not gonna do that either. Thank you, Elon, but no thanks.
Yeah, that was all I had.
And I would assume too that since that whole, by the way, that whole column seems to keep going down, it doesn't look like it adds up. Not that that really changes the outcome here and what we're doing, but I gotta say, I appreciate John Brown being here. I remember back in the day, 7 years ago, when I used to catch the formulas that were off and a cell was out of place. I don't know how you look at this like it's the matrix and you find the one number that's wrong, but it is nice to have you here, overlooking these numbers. Anything else, Mr. Montgomery? You good? Kenny?
I am.
Last call, Mr. Brown? All right. Thank you. All right, item number 2 is a recommendation to the Jenks Aquarium Authority that this fiscal year 2024 to 2026 biennial budget and its related documents. If you guys would like to make that motion that we make this recommendation, please do so with
Yes, I make the motion. We accept the budget with some minor modifications we've talked about.
Second?
Okay, proper motion and a second to approve this budget with previously mentioned modifications. Let's vote, please.
Brown.
Yes.
Montgomery.
Yes?
Chair Box.
Yes, congratulations. Mr. Shrout?
Chair, I'd like to thank Tara for all her work on this.
you
She
for
was the
catching my
deputy,
mistake.
and then stepping in and doing this basically all by herself, I think is really impressive, and I think that we can forgive her for one
My error.
formula error.
Forgiven. Thank you.